we find ourselves derailed. We find ourselves in the wrong place, having made a wrong decision, taken a wrong turn. And if we're derailed, then we sometimes refer to that as being off track. More than once in my life, I've been off track. I recall back in the mid-70s, turbulent time in the history of this nation. I was fairly young then, had come to Missouri on vacation, had been to Springfield, and I had some friends that were at college on a campus west of here. You know the one. And I was going from Springfield to this beautiful community and this beautiful campus to see some old friends from high school. What I didn't know was the route that I had planned looked like the simplest, and it might have been, but not at the time that I took it. I went from Springfield to Kansas City. I went from the east side of Kansas City, straight through the heart of Kansas City, headed west. Never having been to Kansas City, never having been in a community bigger than Wichita, I found out that life is not so simple on I-70 at 7 o'clock in the morning. It's called rush hour traffic. And I had never seen, let alone experienced, anything like that in my life. I had that steering wheel as tight as I could grab it. And I was trying to stay out of everybody's way. I didn't know what roads to take. I didn't know where this switched to that. I didn't know that sometimes lanes took you to places you didn't intend to go. And I remember getting off track. I remember being down in the middle of Kansas City. And there's cars everywhere, and I'm as far right as I could get. And all of a sudden I see this sign that says if I stay on this lane that I'm in, I'm going to get off on Paseo. I don't know what Paseo is. But it's not Kansas. And I can't get over. So I get off on Paseo, and I can't figure out how I get back up on I-70, headed in the direction I want to go. So I drive around the block because there's all these big buildings. Come to find out, they call them projects. And as I come around the corner, there is this one elderly gentleman sitting on a porch. Okay. He lives here. He knows what I need to do. I stop, I get out of my car, and I go up to this friendly-looking gentleman. And I said, "Sir, I think I'm lost." And he looked at me and grinned and said, "Oh, you're lost." "Yes, sir, you're lost." I said, "Well, I just need to know how to get back on I-70 headed west." And he said, "Well, you do this, and you turn there, and you take another turn, and you're headed west." And then he grinned at me and he said, "And do it quickly." Okay. And I took his advice. And I rushed right on out of there. And I got to the far side, to Kansas City, Kansas. And the big city was behind me in the rearview mirror, and the only thing I could think of is I can't get away from here fast enough. And I put my foot into it. And a few miles down the road, I see the lights come on. And I just pull over and wait for him to go up and turn around and come back. And we'll get back to that in a moment. But that experience reminded me that sometimes when you get off track, you find yourselves in a place that somebody has designated as the wrong side of the tracks. A place where you won't be comfortable. A place you don't want to go. A place you don't want to be. And I realized most of my life I had lived on the wrong side of the tracks and I didn't know it. In the community where I was raised, there was one high school. Only one. And in grade school, there was all these little schools all across town, and depending on where you lived, it determined what grade school you went to. And in the area where I lived when I was in grade school, that was considered the school that the poor children went to, and the people of color, the illegal immigrants, because they all lived over there where I lived on the wrong side of the track. And then we moved. About the time I was supposed to start junior high, and they had just built a new junior high, so now there were 2 junior highs in the community, and I was going to get to go to the one where the rich kids went. But I still lived on the wrong side of the track. And then we moved a year later. And I was back in the old neighborhood and got to go to the other junior high. So most of my life I lived on the wrong side of the track. And I didn't know it because, you see, my grandfather was a newspaper man. And when we lived out in southwest Kansas, he considered everything east of Lawrence to be on the wrong side of the track. Because y'all voted funny over here. So I always thought I was on the right side of the track. And in his world, I was. But in the community where I was raised, I wasn't. And there's something uneasy about being off track. About living on the wrong side of the track. And then when I moved to Missouri, thank God my grandfather had passed by then. He never would have forgiven me. And I went into the ministry, serving a church over by Odessa. New to the community, I asked one of the people in my congregation to show me around, and it was like this, an open country church, but we went into Odessa, where the people were, and I asked him to drive me around and show me where the people were. And we went through this neighborhood, and we went through that neighborhood, and I found out there was a wrong side of the tracks even in Odessa. Because we came to this place, and there was a road that went beyond this huge fence. And it was a wooden fence, you couldn't see what was behind it. And I said, well, let's go see what's behind there. Oh, no, Pastor, we can't do that. Why not? It doesn't say that it's a closed road. Well, we don't go there. Are there people there? Well, yes. Well, let's go. We can't, Pastor. Why not? That's where the poor people live. The really poor people. The people with addiction problems. The alcoholic. It's a trailer park back there. And it's really run down. We don't go there. to see who was living there. Whenever we find ourselves out of our comfort zone, whether it's physically, mentally, or spiritually, we have this uneasy feeling of being off track or being on the wrong side of the track. And sometimes we turn to those things that we know, that are familiar to us, that are comfortable to us. Sometimes it's comfort food, and sometimes it's old traditions. And sometimes it's medicine, legal or illegal. And sometimes it's alcohol, and sometimes it's power. There's a variety of things that we turn to find that comfort zone. And sometimes that's a good thing and it's healthy, and sometimes it's destructive. Remember, I was telling you I got to the far side of Kansas City, Kansas. And for me, the comfort zone was to get away from that big metropolitan area as fast as I could go. And I had a brand new car that would go pretty fast. And I do mean I floored it. I did not want to be around another car another minute. When that policeman finally made the turn and came up behind me, I was sitting on the back of my car waiting for him. And he got out and he shook his head and he said, "Young man, do you have any idea how fast you were going?" I said, "Yes, sir, do you?" He said, "I couldn't believe it the first time I clocked you. So I clocked you again. By then, you had it down to 95. That's what I'm going to give you the ticket for." I said, "Thank you." He said, "Now, why were you going so fast?" And I explained to him my uneasy feeling and experience that I just went through. And he just laughed and he said, "Well, I can understand that feeling, but you can't do that. What you did was very dangerous." And sometimes, seeking that comfort level, we do dangerous things. And he chuckled and he said, "You know, I could have you turn around and take this envelope with the money you're going to put into it to pay the fine to a post office box back in that city." I said, "Yeah, I know that." He said, "But I happen to be traveling in the same direction you're going. Follow me. I'll show you where to get off. And you can put that in a mailbox in a small community, one that you'll be more comfortable with." I couldn't thank him enough. But I noticed he didn't drive over the speed limit either. So it took us a little longer to get there than I had planned. But that's okay. Sometimes when we try to recover that comfort, it can be destructive and we can put ourselves and others at risk. All of us do that. In fact, if we would take a moment and consider what are those comfortable places in our lives that we turn to when we're uneasy. Are they good for us? Are they healthy for us? Or are they destructive to us? I do believe that if we're really honest with ourselves, there's at least one of those places that we turn to more than once. That is harmful to us. That we don't want to let go of. We all have that within us. We have those places. The one called Jesus was born into a very specific place and time. A place where he knew what it was to have these dividing lines, these other sides of the track. See, he grew up a Jewish male in a time and a place where everything around Israel, all the people around Israel, were on the wrong side of the track. to maintain their integrity as a nation, as a people, as a religion. They had established all kinds of laws to keep themselves separated from the world around them. It was little reason to doubt that a tax collector was one of the most despised people of their nation. You see, not only were they taking money and giving it to the Romans, but in order for them to be able to do this, they had to associate on a daily basis with the Gentiles, the outsiders. They were ritually defiling themselves every day. You see, observant, faithful Jews did not ever sit down with a Gentile. And they certainly didn't enter their home. Jesus, no one called Jesus. He was always crossing the line. Those lines that separated people one from another. He crossed them all the time. He wandered in to those areas that were considered the other side of the tracks. He did it on purpose. He touched lepers, healed lepers. People filled with demons, he encountered them face to face. He gave conversation and time and took a drink of water from a Samaritan. He was always crossing the line. See, the reason he did was because with Jesus, with God the Father, there are no wrong sides of the track. And when we are filled by the Holy Spirit, led by the Holy Spirit of God, there's no getting off track. We might find ourselves in situations that are a little uncomfortable, but when we are following the Holy Spirit of God, it's still a good place. It's a holy place. Because with Him, there are no wrong sides of the track. Well, last week we talked about hope and our basis for hope being God the Father. And we see in His Word today, and we see in His willingness to cross the lines, that our hope is so powerful. When Jesus had finished saying all this in the hearing of the people, he entered Capernaum. There a centurion's servant, whom his master valued highly, was sick and about to die. The centurion heard of Jesus and sent some elders of the Jews to him, asking him to come and heal his servant. When they came to Jesus, they pleaded earnestly with him, "This man deserves to have you do this, because he loves our nation and has built our synagogue." The elders went to Jesus on this man's behalf, this outsider's behalf, and pleaded his case, because he had a reputation for loving the people. Yes, he was an outsider, but he loved the people and he helped build the synagogue. He was sympathetic to them in their religion. So they pleaded with Jesus to go to his home and to heal the servant. Well, for Jesus, for any Jew, to enter the home of this Gentile would have constituted an act of ritual defilement. Now surely the elders didn't expect him to go into this man's home. Maybe they had in mind something similar to what took place when Naaman went to see Elisha for healing. And when he went to the prophet's home, the prophet didn't go outside to meet this Gentile face to face. He sent word out. Maybe they thought Jesus would do something like that. Don't know. Doesn't tell us. But it does tell us that they pleaded on this man's behalf. And Jesus went. of His love and His compassion, He went. So Jesus went with them. He was not far from the house when the centurion sent friends to say to him, Lord, don't trouble yourself, for I did not deserve to have you come under my roof. This is why I did not even consider myself worthy to come to you. But say the word, my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him, and turning to the crowd, following him, he said, I tell you, I have not found such great faith, even in Israel. Then the men who had been sent returned to the house and found the servant well. While on the route to the man's house, the man realized that even though those who went to plead his case said he was worthy, said he deserved it, he did not. He was unworthy, and he recognized that. And he sent word out for Jesus not to come to the house because he recognized his unworthiness. And he also expressed that he knew what it was to be an authority and to have people over him. And he recognized the authority and the power of the one called Jesus. The question for us today is this. When will we recognize that the love and the grace and the mercy of God is given to us not because we deserve it, but because He loves us that much? When will we become the kind of disciples, followers, children of God that will have such a faith that we can say, speak the word, say the word, and all those barriers disappear? We don't care about the wrong side or the right side of the tracks. You say the word and we will go. Say the word, speak the word, and we will sit with those people, whomever those people are. Say the word, and you will follow. When will we recognize that we are not worthy? When will we have such a faith that we become, say the word, disciple? In these coming moments, as you have the opportunity to come and share your offering with God by placing it in this basket, you also have the opportunity to spend time at this rail or back where you're currently seated, or one of the other people, whatever is most comfortable for you. But as we make our offerings, let us also take time to consider, are we understanding that we are recipients of His love and His grace, not because we're worthy, not because we deserve it, but because He wants us that much? Are we the kind of disciples that have such a faith that He just needs to speak? Simply say the word, and we will follow. We will be whatever He says for us to be. Or do we fall back to those things that bring us comfort, even if they're not good for us? You're invited to